Um, it's great to be here. The timing of this couldn't be better because yesterday I was part of a dialogue with 22 neighborhood thought leaders. A couple of them I see here, at least 3 are in the room, there may be more, on the issue of density from a neighborhood perspective in Vancouver. And it was one of those sessions where we've invited a whole range of different people. So there were people that came from residents associations, business. Nobody was representing a specific interest. They were reflecting their views. And the day before the session, I think I fielded 3 irate emails and several phone calls from people. And I thought, you know, I've done 30 years of facilitating, but tonight I need to go and get some coaching because I have no idea what I'm walking into tomorrow. So I actually sat the night before and got some coaching on how not to get triggered in a conversation about density in the city of Vancouver. And so I had walked into the session prepared but excited at the same time because I thought, you know, it's in that diversity of ideas that we're going to have some really interesting things that come out. And it was a great session. Now, I'm also co-facilitating the Mayor's Task Force on Affordable Housing. So you can imagine how often the issue of density comes up at that table. So it feels like I'm spending my life embroiled in this issue. So I want to take the few minutes that I have to actually go through some of the things we heard yesterday. And one of the things that we talked about is what is compelling us right now in Vancouver to look at density. And to quote one of the participants, well, you can't grow land. And she couldn't be more true. We used to develop by using our brownfields, by looking at our industrial base, so much so that we've eroded so much of our industrial base to almost 20%. As another person said, is, you know, we're in a sense a victim of our own success. We've been so open to the world, and it's true that our city has become this very desirable place to live, and people are coming here, not just moving here to work, but moving here to invest. And as one participant said, let's be honest, there's a lot of people that have made money in the real estate market here. It's been a good investment. Others talked about our greenest city goals, those compelling reasons that we have to really transition to a low carbon economy, to deal with one of the most compelling issues of our time, climate change, and start to address density. You can't have district energy unless you have density. You can't really invest in infrastructure and transit without greater density. Others talked about really wanting to address social equity. Affordability is huge in this city. It's massive in this city, and we're not addressing it, and the forms that we have don't necessarily address it either. Others talked about wanting family-centered developments. I'm in the east side. There's been talk about closing a number of schools in the east side of Vancouver, in part because the population isn't there to support it, in part because people are sending their kids to the west side. And so there's a whole movement, and Andy Kwan's work at the Bing Tom Associates on family-centered development is something worth looking at. There are others that talked about, you know, not everybody wants the little house with the white picket fence and the car in the garage, that there is a different kind of set of values with young people coming and other folks coming to our communities, and that those are really impressive and interesting. So those are some of the issues, in addition to population growth, in addition to the things we talk about that's compelling us. We then talked about barriers, and we did this activity where people posted what they thought were the barriers for them in their communities to density. And when we sat back and we looked back at that wall, it was fascinating to see that 2/3 of the barriers were based on values. Fear, safety, that concern that as we grow, we won't have the kind of connectivity that we have now. Fear of the loss of certain community values, fear of the way our communities look. There are other physical concerns as well, shading, you know, loss of sunlight, the scale of development, the concern that we're trading off so much in these conversations around spot zoning. This is one of the things that people said, our consultations on spot zonings aren't working. We're asking citizens to trade off amenities to get the height for amenities. And is that necessarily a good thing? So it was a fascinating process. And one of the things we did is we asked everybody in that room, we gave them a challenge. And we said, okay, you got to think like a city planner now. Here's your challenge. You have got to think of the year 2040, and we want you to design this city as if there are 200,000 more people. You need to find 200,000 more jobs. 20,000 more purpose-built rental, another 20,000 secondary suites, 60,000 affordable home ownership. We're going to have at least a meter increase in sea level rise. And you want to protect the parks and green spaces. Now go to it. And that exercise made the people in the room step back and go, I can't think like just what I want. I got to think like a city planner. I've got to look at the city. I've got to look at where would I put density? How would I address that? How would I come up with new ways? And some of the ideas that came out were absolutely inspiring. Now, it was only yesterday, so we don't have all the notes together, and our final report's not done. But out of that, I was looking at it, I was thinking, you know, they're not just going at this from a regulatory point of view. They're going at this from a point of view of new ideas, new different kinds of forms. We don't have a lot of stacked housing and row housing here. Going into communities and saying, how do we create density at a scale that's acceptable? And one of the things that as we looked around and talked about what did we learn, there was one participant that says, you know, I think what I've brought from this is that density is a surrogate for values. And if we don't start having that conversation in our own city, we don't start having a conversation about density from a value base, and we don't start talking as a community in a really transparent and authentic way, and really look at this as an educational opportunity, then we may continue to have these huge debates that we're having each time a new development is brought to bear. So that's my biggest takeaway, and I guess what I want to leave here, and certainly the conversations I'm going to have with my friends in City Hall and in the city planning, is that we've got to move to a different kind of conversation. And that conversation is one that comes authentically from what we care about and want and love of this city, and how we can build out. Because I don't think the concerns in this city are about whether we densify or not. I really don't. I think that there is incredible consensus that we need to. It's how we do it. Thank you.